Hey, what's going on, everybody, man? My name's Riley. If it's your first time seeing my face on YouTube, go subscribe to my channel and leave a like on this video. On today's clip, we're jumping over to Montana today. We're going to be covering a story about Dustin. I don't want to pronounce his last name because I know I'm going to butcher it, but he was found dead inside his tent when he went on a camping trip. A few hours later, it looks like someone admitted to this murder, so it looks like they already have somebody in custody for it. So we're gonna jump in today and see just kind of what actually took place, who they have, and what was the motive behind this story. I'm gonna stop yapping my jaws. We're gonna hop right in. Let's go. O'Reilly. Alright, y'all, for everyone with this clip, make sure you're comfortable, grab something to snack on and something to sip, and let's just do this video together. Before we go on this clip, I want to say prayers go out to the victim's family. Hope they're getting through this tough time.
The Sheriff's Office is here to announce the arrest of Darren Christopher Abbey for the murder of Dustin Gersom.
A father is found dead in a tent in Montana, and a man...
It's always heartbreaking seeing a father or mother just get tragically taken away from an innocent child like this. Now they have to grow up and, you know, later learn the story that their father was cold-blooded and murdered. That's just truly is heartbreaking, man.
And admits to killing him. I have the sad and stunning details about Dustin Gersom's murder and how detectives identified the suspect. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Dustin Gersom had a young daughter and a stepson, and on October 10th, he decided to do something that he loved to do, go camping. Gersom set up his tent at the Moose Creek Campground. That's in Gallatin County, Montana. But that night, sadly, would be Dustin Gersom's last time camping. And it's just wrong because he should have had so many more. Here's the Gallatin County Sheriff, Dan Springer, explaining what happened during a news conference last month.
These are beautiful.
On October 12th, the Sheriff's Office received a report of a male found deceased in his wall tent approximately 2.5 miles up Moose Creek. The male has been identified as 35-year-old Dustin Gersom of the Belgrade-Bozeman area.
The person who found Dustin actually called in believing that he had been attacked by a bear, but it became very apparent after wildlife officers examined the scene that Gersom's injuries were not from a bear, but were from an attack by another person. Sheriff Springer told the public that that day the investigators needed their help. It sounded like they didn't really have any leads. The sheriff described when Dustin Gersom was last seen, hoping that someone might call in with a critical tip.
Dustin was last seen in the afternoon hours of Thursday, October 10, 2024. He was leaving to go camping up Moose Creek in his black 2013 Ford F-250 with a black topper and an aluminum silver ladder rack. He was well prepared for a weekend of camping and had plans to meet with a friend on Friday afternoon, but he never made that meeting.
Dustin Gersom's sister, Jillian Price, talked about the loss that her family suffered when Dustin was murdered.
This weekend, we lost our brother, our son, our uncle, our best friends, and our dad in the most unimaginable way. Dustin was a great kid. He was born here in Bozeman, and he worked all over the valley. He could have framed your house. He could have poured your foundation. He could have installed your countertops. He was a hardworking, skilled tradesman.
Jillian Price begged anyone with information to call the sheriff.
He was a loving, helpful, and adoring father who in no way deserved this. I ask our community to please help us find out who did this. There is someone in our valley that is capable of truly heinous things. Please, if you are in Moose Creek at any time from Thursday to Saturday, please call and talk, even if you think you didn't see anything.
As the investigation continued, the sheriff released more information, including that 2 guns, a shotgun and a revolver, had been taken from the crime scene. Also taken from the scene, an Estwing camping axe with a 26-inch handle and an orange Yeti cooler. The killer must have taken both items. It took some time, but on Halloween, the sheriff announced an arrest had been made in Dustin Gersom's murder.
The Sheriff's Office is here to announce the arrest of Darren
3 weeks later
Abbey for the murder of Dustin Gersom.
The sheriff said that Darren Abbey didn't know Dustin Gersom.
By all accounts, this homicide appears to be a chance encounter. There does not appear to be any connection between our victim and our suspect.
And it only gets worse. Dustin Jerzum, according to the sheriff, was welcoming to Darren Abbey at his campsite.
During the confession, we learned the suspect was looking for a place to camp on Thursday night and had planned on this particular site. As he approached the site, he realized someone was staying there. He stated Dustin welcomed him to the campsite and offered him a beer. At some point, this individual struck Dustin Jerzum with a piece of solid wood, stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, and ultimately hit him with the axe.
What the hell's wrong with people,
The
dude?
motives of this attack are still unknown.
The sheriff said Abbey was picked up on a probation violation, and he talked about those items that Abbey removed from the crime scene.
This individual removed items from the campsite he believed had evidence that could tie him to the crime. He removed the items he had touched, to include the cooler, the firearms, and the axe, and he returned to the crime the following night and removed further items. This is the behavior of a guilty subject who thought they could get away with murder.
But the sheriff says there was an item that Abbey missed. It was a beer can that contained Abbey's DNA, and that's what led to him being identified.
That's wild,
Abbey
man.
had at least 4 prior arrests for driving under the influence. I want to bring in Edward Wallace. He is a forensic consultant. Edward, I want you to tell me what your gut reaction is about this case and the fact that this guy apparently, according to the sheriff, was so careful to remove things like guns from the scene, the axe, the Yeti cooler, things that he thought might have his DNA on them, but then leaves the beer can behind.
Well, criminals always make mistakes, and they always miss something, especially when it wasn't planned, or especially when it's unorganized as this is. Okay, so this was a random act, that occurred here, and as he said, he missed the beer.
The beer to me is so key, though, because the beer is, according to the sheriff, Dustin Jerzum offers this guy a beer. Friendly guy says, yeah, hey, come have a beer with me, or here's a beer. The guy, I guess, sits down, hangs out with him possibly for a little bit. We don't really know. He leaves his DNA on that, leaves that behind. According to the sheriff, he uses the axe to hit Dustin Jerzum, hits him with his own axe, takes all these things, but then comes back the next day, according to the sheriff, to collect even more items that might have his DNA. So it just seems to me really crazy that this guy would be so careful about taking things from the scene that might have his DNA on them, but leave something that is such a big deal, so small, a beer can, but leave something like that. I know criminals make mistakes, but that was really his undoing.
Yeah, and if memory serves me right, the beer can was in the tent. Maybe it was in an obscure corner of the tent, because apparently this was a stand-up tent with walls, not your typical tent with heating and so forth. Maybe just missed it. As I said, he did come back, but you understand too the Locard's exchange principle. This says every time several objects and places have an impact or get together, that when they separate, they're going to take bits and pieces of that scene with them, and they're going to leave their presence there. Okay, so in this case, he missed that can, crucial piece, but I'm sure he left hairs and fibers, and he left other forensic evidence there by his mere presence there twice, not once, but twice, because he came back. So he's shedding hair, he's shedding fibers from his clothing, possible footwear impressions, things like that, and also vehicles. If he used the vehicle to get there and then leave, there could be evidence of that vehicle's presence there. It just all depends upon how thorough a crime scene investigation is.
It's a really gruesome homicide. I mean, it says to me that maybe they don't get a lot of murders up there, that basically the people who discovered this, it was just Dustin Jerzum's girlfriend and her friend. They became concerned. They went looking for him. They find this scene and they report to police. They think he was attacked by a bear. I mean, because you wouldn't think that your loved one maybe had been murdered, or wouldn't want to think that. So they get on scene. They determine, obviously, this was not a bear attack. They thought maybe it was at first, but then they say, no, this was a homicide. I mean, this is really gruesome stuff. They're talking about him being stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver, hit with the axe, hit with a huge piece of wood. This is really grisly stuff. I can't imagine possibly what the motive would be here. This is a chance encounter, the sheriff says.
That was on drugs or something.
Yeah, it seems like a crime of opportunity here, maybe to steal some of the decedent's belongings, cash, equipment, things of that nature. And the fact that initially non-trained forensic people thought it was a bear attack is, doesn't mean anything to me, because it's obvious when you see a puncture wound in the neck and it looks like an instrument that caused it. A bear makes specific types of injuries and wounds, claws, teeth marks, things of that nature. It wouldn't be a solo puncture mark on the neck from a screwdriver that would represent a bear attack. If it was a tooth or teeth, rather, there would be multiple teeth impressions in skin making puncture wounds. If it was the slicing caused by bear claw, you would see that through the clothing and so forth. Now, the axe is a tool, and it's going to leave its presence on the skin, the clothing, and even bone if it hits the bone. So the forensic pathologist and the forensic anthropologist would know right off the bat that it wasn't a bear attack.
Mm-hmm. This crime, according to the police, it happens on October 10th. They learn about it on October 12th. They make the arrest on October 30th. They announce it on Halloween, the 31st. Do you feel like that's pretty quick? A lot of people want things solved more quickly than that, but it sounded like they had very few clues in the very beginning of this investigation, other than nobody can think of who would want to hurt this guy, Dustin Jerzum. He's a guy, hardworking dad who just went camping. It's something he does. But then it seems like the DNA was really the key here. Does that seem pretty quick, all things considered, that they were able to bring this together?
Yeah, it does, because normally it takes a while to extract the DNA from the can and then amplify it and then identify whether or not there's a profile there that meets submission to CODIS. In this case, it did. They had enough loci to put it into CODIS, and thank God the criminal here, the perpetrator of this heinous crime, was in the system from his previous criminal behavior, and so he had a CODIS profile in the criminal database, and they were able to get a hit, and it led them right back to him, and they were able to arrest him short distance away from where the crimes occurred.
The thing that's interesting to me, too, is the sheriff, he offered some details about the confession. He claims Darren Abbey confessed, which is interesting to me. It makes me wonder whether this was an impulsive crime, whether the guy, thought, oh, I'm going to go there and rob somebody, but then I'm going to take their life. Maybe there was an altercation. I have no idea. But the sheriff, he did offer that he confessed, but then said, I'm holding back details about his story because we don't know if it's true. What do you think about him, allegedly confessing so quickly right off the bat?
Well, I'm given probably the DNA results to the suspect during the interview. He figured, okay, they got me, and so he's been in the system before. He knows what to expect, so he thought he'd make it easier on himself. Because I'm not sure if Montana has the death penalty, and if he's eligible for that. All of these things would play into it, and his cooperation would also play into how he's treated in the courts if he's going to take a plea. But I believe he pled not guilty, if I'm correct.
Correct.
At his arraignment. Okay, yes. So he has counsel.
Didn't he admit to it?
But here's the thing.
I think he's getting off this one.
What happened to all those things that he removed? Okay, from the campsite, because if law enforcement has the capability of finding those items, if he told them what he did with them, then they can go get them, examine them for his fingerprints, his DNA, his hair and fibers, the suspect, the victim's blood, his blood, or his other DNA that might be on there. I don't know if he sustained any injuries in the attack, or whatever the case may be. But and then they can validate his confession, but based upon what he's telling them. So you could use the forensics in there to assist them with, the validation of what he's telling them.
Yeah, most certainly. It'll be interesting to see whether or not they can recover those items, because you would think that if this guy, he takes the items, then goes back to the scene, looking to take more
rid of
items
them.
to clean up after himself. You would think he would get rid of that stuff, but we just don't know at this point whether he did.
I mean, he also stayed.
Yeah, we don't know what kind
in
of
the same town, it looked like,
wood
so.
that he used to initiate the attack. Okay, was it a piece of firewood? Because I understand there was a fire going, and was it? And did he leave that behind, or did he take it because he thought, if I leave it behind, nobody's going to really know? I mean, it's a piece of firewood. Or did he throw it in the fire and get rid of it, or was it a 2x4 or some other type of lumber that may have been at the campsite for use by the victim? And then he took that, and if so, let's try to track down all these things where he disposed of them, and try to again get his DNA, hairs and fibers, and maybe even fingerprints.
Yeah, well, it's
And
just
then we'll solidify.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they would solidify the case that way, and show that his confession was true. So. Yeah, it was a horrible case. Act of violence, a needless act of violence. Extreme act of violence, in my opinion, given the nature of what he did.
That's
Yeah,
horrific.
just an awful, awful, horrible case. And our hearts go out to Dustin Jersum's family. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix.
So this is where it's gonna wrap up. So they did apprehend the suspect, took him into custody. But it just, what causes something like that? What would be the motive? That's the question on today's video. What is the motive for this guy? Do you think he was on some type of drugs? He was just, maybe he had something he wanted, but like stabbing him in the neck with a screwdriver, that's something like, you know what I mean? Like, ew, that's pretty bad. That's some like shit you'd see in a horror movie. I'm just being real. So that's the question. What's the thoughts and what was the motive for this killing? Other than that, we're gonna roll this outro. Let's go. All right, y'all, we're gonna wrap this one up right here. If you enjoy this type of content, I'm gonna link a playlist right here in the video. It's gonna have all the reactions on there for y'all to check out. We'll be dropping 5 videos a week here on the channel, so it's important for y'all to go down there. As you subscribing, go right next door, knock on a little notification bell's house, hit that, say what's up, so you know when we upload a video. We've also been live streaming here on YouTube about 5 days a week as well, sometimes 6 if we're lucky. So if you're interested in that, we just play games. The games y'all recommend on these videos, we also be playing with some of the viewers. So if y'all interested in those 3 type of things, then the O'Reilly live stream, it sounds right up your alley. I might be live right now. If my profile has got a little red circle around it, tap that, come say what's up. I'm having to meet some of y'all in there. Other than that, I'm gonna let y'all go on. Appreciate y'all staying to the end of this video. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Until next time, peace.